Well, some new reaction just into the findings of a congressional report on Operation Fast and Furious. The GOP-led investigation now placing blame on 5 ATF members, including the agency's acting director. All of this for the botched gun-walking sting that extends into Mexico. Where does it go from here? One question today. Take a listen.
I think the public understands what's going on in this Fast and Furious, and it's outrageous, and it's so outrageous. The president is really busy trying to do his damage control. Now we have a report coming out. It's going to identify individuals and show documentation of what they had to do with it. I think what they generally do is they do their damage control and they try to shift it. You know, this attitude, any more of that in my administration, heads will roll around here, so that they don't have to take personal responsibility. It's just not going to work. I would say that this could be a very serious issue in the upcoming campaign for Barack Obama.
Well, the report comes just a month after the Republican-led House voted to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress for refusing to turn over what they say are some key Justice Department documents. Joining us now, Hadley Heath, Senior Policy Analyst for the Independent Women's Forum, and Corey Elons. He's a former Communication Advisor to President Obama and Senior Vice President of Vox Global. Welcome to you both.
Morning.
Corey, one of the things that came out of this report is that you have 5 ATF agents. We just kind of went through that a little bit. They're still currently employed as part of the ATF. Where are the Democrats on this issue, and should the Democrats, in light of this report, get more involved?
Well, Jenna, first I have to say that what's unfortunate about this entire conversation this morning is that we're talking about a leaked report, and that's consistent with the very partisan nature in which this investigation has been conducted over the past 18 months. Everything has been done for political points. Little has been done to really get down to the bottom of what happened in this matter and who's responsible.
Do you think the Democrats should do more on that as well, Corey?
Well, here's the issue, and again, it speaks to the political nature in which the investigation has been conducted. Democrats have consistently called for witnesses to come forward publicly to testify before Congress, including members of the Bush administration who were in charge when this program was initially instituted. They have been denied by the chairman of the committee. That includes Mr. Melman, who was the interim director of the ATF when the program was executed. And so, again, when you have this obstructionist nature in which the investigation has been conducted, when Democrats don't have a voice in how things are discussed and reviewed over the course of the past 18 months, yes, it's a very partisan, very political, and I think it's been called political theater by those who've been paying attention to it.
And Hadley, we'll go back to whether or not more lawmakers should get involved, because we really didn't get to that part necessarily of the question. But to Corey's good points there, it has been very partisan, and this has been a GOP-led effort. Is there the risk? Did the GOP run the risk of just making it seem too political, even if that's not their intention? We don't know. And having that backfire on them at a crucial time right before an election.
I don't think this will backfire on Republicans. In fact, when the House voted to hold Eric Holder in contempt, 17 Democrats joined with them in that vote. So it's more bipartisan than it seems. I think what's really an issue here is in a CNN poll earlier this month, 69% of Americans, that's a huge number considering how divided our country is among partisan lines, 69% of citizens say they disapprove of President Obama's use of executive privilege here. They thought it was inappropriate. So I think this really comes back to him, who touted his administration as it was going to be the most transparent in history, and I don't think that's happening here.
But Hadley, on that point, the president himself has not been directly implicated, and we should mention that there's 2 other reports that we do expect. You have the Attorney General being held in contempt of Congress, but the effects of that we won't know for months, sometimes even years. So is it fair even to continue to go back to the president here when there's been little evidence to suggest that he is part of a specific cover-up when it comes to Fast and Furious?
You know, Americans, Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. Americans in general are very concerned with the amount of corruption in the federal government, not necessarily just on President Obama's shoulders, but the entire federal government. In fact, when Gallup asked Americans what should the priorities of the next president of the United States be, they said #1, creating jobs, and #2, reducing corruption in the federal government. So this is an issue with bureaucracy. It's also an issue with a very flawed operation that wasn't just flawed or botched in its execution, but was flawed by design. And so I think Americans still want more answers when it comes to that.
Let's get Corey in on that point as well, Hadley, because that's something that certainly comes up a lot, Corey. Just when it comes to, again, leadership and accountability in all lawmakers, despite what party they're a part of. You still have these 5 ATF workers. Apparently, they were part of covering up something, according to this report, or being part of this operation. Should Democrats, leadership, maybe even the president come out and say these guys, whoever they are, shouldn't be working for the government anymore?
Well, here's what should happen. First of all, we should let all of these investigations run their course and release all of these reports so that we have a fair and direct appreciation for exactly what took place here. We've already had a report that was released earlier this year by the minority, the Democrats on the committee. We have another report, another investigation that's being conducted, and a report that's going to be released by DOJ and the independent investigator there. What's curious, again, about the political posturing associated with this issue by the majority on the committee is that we have 3 reports, not just one. If we have all the facts, if we have all the findings, release them all at one time. Why are we stringing this out?
But the president
like
could
it's a
step
series
out
of
in
novels?
front of
Why
this.
don't we put all the information out at one time?
Corey,
and that this is a very serious matter,
absolutely.
and we need to get to the bottom of it.
So, Corey, quick final thought here, and then Hadley, I'll get yours, and then we're going to have to say goodbye. But should the president, based on the information we have, because we're literally drowning in reports, come out and make a statement about these people that are still employed and still part of this operation, or was attached to it at some point?
I think right now the president's posture in this is perfectly appropriate, and we should all stand by and wait until we get the final findings in these reports before we rush to judgment. Again, a man lost his life.
Good point.
And we should be concerned about getting to the bottom of this issue.
And that certainly is the core issue. Hadley, your quick thoughts on this?
Right, hundreds of lives have been lost as a result of this operation, and not one person has been fired yet. So I think that's really at issue. I do agree with Corey. We do need to see more information, but I hope the president will be more forthcoming and stop using executive privilege in cases that it makes it look like, you know, unless he has a compelling reason for keeping these documents from the public, why is he involved in keeping information from the public?
Hadley and Corey, nice to have you both today. Really appreciate both of your insights and look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, who could forget this guy?